Princess Aurelian Vera stood on the highest balcony of Dracaran Spire, watching snow drift lazily over the capital. Below her, the Empire prepared for the Festival of Scales, a celebration of dragons, power, and royal legacy. Music echoed. Fireworks flared. Gifts were exchanged everywhere except with her. Aurelian rested her claws on the cold stone railing, expression unreadable. As the Dragon Princess, she was worshipped, feared, and obeyed. Entire worlds bowed when she passed. Yet in 19 cycles of life, she had never once received a present. Not a real one. Royal tributes didn't count. Neither did ceremonial offerings, political gifts, or ornate weapons meant to impress the throne. Those weren't for her. They were for the title, and everyone knew it. Far below the royal levels, deep within the maintenance corridors, Evan Holt pushed a cleaning cart down a marble hallway. Human. Janitor. Forgotten. He wore a faded gray uniform, sleeves rolled up, humming quietly while scrubbing scorch marks left by careless nobles. No one ever noticed him unless he missed a spot. Evan had worked in the palace for 3 years. He had learned something important very quickly. The Dragon Princess was always alone. He saw it in the small details. The way servants avoided eye contact with her. How celebrations never included her personally. How everyone assumed power replaced affection. Once, during a festival cleanup, Evan had overheard a noble whisper. "She doesn't need gifts. She has everything." Evan had frowned and muttered under his breath, "Yeah. That's usually when someone needs one the most." Aurelian turned from the balcony and walked the quiet inner halls, claws clicking softly against the floor. The laughter of nobles faded behind thick doors. That's when she noticed him. A human, crouched near a wall, carefully polishing a section of marble most people never even looked at. She paused. Evan sensed the temperature shift before he saw her. His spine stiffened. Slowly he turned. The Dragon Princess stood less than 10 feet away. Tall, crimson-scaled, golden eyes sharp enough to shatter courage. "Oh, Your Highness," Evan stammered, standing so fast he nearly knocked over his cart. "Sorry if I'm in the way." Aurelian studied him in silence. Most people bowed. Most people trembled. Most people tried to impress her. This human just looked embarrassed. "You clean here every festival," she said. Evan blinked. "Why, you noticed?" "I notice everything," she replied calmly. That was a lie, but she didn't know why she said it. The silence stretched. Then Aurelian asked, almost absently, "Why are you still working?" Evan scratched the back of his neck. "Someone's gotta clean after the celebration. Fireworks ash gets everywhere. Plus, I don't really celebrate." Her eyes flicked to him. "Why not?" He hesitated. Never really had anyone to celebrate with. The words hit harder than either of them expected. Aurelian looked away first. "Neither have I." Evan's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't meant. I didn't, sorry, Your Highness." She raised a claw. "It is acceptable." Then she did something no one had ever done before. She stayed. They stood side by side, looking out over the glowing city. "Do humans exchange gifts during festivals?" Aurelian asked. Evan nodded. "Yeah, not always expensive stuff. Sometimes it's small, thoughtful." "What is the purpose?" He smiled softly. "To say I saw you." That answer lingered in the air. Aurelian swallowed. No one had ever seen her. They saw her power, her lineage, her threat. Never her. "Do humans ever give gifts secretly?" she asked. Evan chuckled. "All the time. We even have a thing called a secret Santa. You give someone a present without them knowing who it's from." Her eyes narrowed with curiosity. "Why hide?" "So the gift isn't about status," he said. "Just kindness." Something shifted behind her eyes. Later that night, Evan pushed his cart away, unaware of the storm he had started. Aurelian returned to her chambers and stared at the ceremonial gifts stacked untouched in gold-lined alcoves. Jewels, weapons, crowns. None of them had ever made her smile. For the first time, she wondered, What would it feel like to receive something meant only for me? Far below, Evan paused in the supply room, staring at a small, half-finished wooden carving he kept hidden in his locker. He'd been working on it during breaks. Just a silly thing. Tiny dragon. Hand-carved. Imperfect. He sighed. She'll never even notice, he muttered. He was wrong. Evan Holt had never planned to become anyone's hero. He was a janitor. A human. Invisible by design. But once the idea took root, it wouldn't leave him alone. A present, he thought while scrubbing soot from a marble pillar. A real one. Not gold. Not power. Just something honest. The Dragon Princess had looked so confused when he'd mentioned Secret Santa. Not cold. Not arrogant. Just lonely. That night, Evan sat on his narrow bunk in the maintenance wing, the soft hum of palace engines vibrating through the walls. From his locker, he pulled out the small wooden carving he'd been shaping for weeks. A dragon. Not fierce. Not roaring. Just curled peacefully, wings folded, eyes gentle. He'd started it as a way to pass time. But now, he ran his thumb over the uneven edges and felt his chest tighten. This is insane, he muttered. Gifting anything to a royal, especially a dragon princess, without authorization could mean imprisonment. Or worse. Still, she never gets presents, he whispered. That settled it. High above, Princess Aurelian Vera stood in her chambers, staring at the city lights below. The festival continued without her. It always did. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the human janitor. Evan. He hadn't bowed properly. He hadn't flattered her. He hadn't been afraid. And when he'd spoken of gifts, there had been no agenda in his eyes. Only sincerity. Secret Santa, she murmured. The idea felt strange. Dangerous. Intimate. Dragons didn't do intimacy. Yet the thought lingered. Over the next few nights, Evan worked quietly. He sanded the carving smoother, burned gentle patterns into the wings, wrapped it in a scrap of deep blue cloth he'd salvaged from a discarded banner. No jewels, no inscription, no name, just a simple tag tied with string. For the one who is always seen, but never known. Evan stared at it for a long time. That'll have to do. Getting the gift into the royal wing was the hard part. Security was tight during festival week. Dragon guards patrolled the halls, scales gleaming, eyes sharp. Evan waited until the hour before dawn, when even dragons grew restless and bored. Pushing his cleaning cart like always, he whistled softly, mop slung over his shoulder. Morning, he said casually to a guard. The dragon snorted. You humans never sleep. Can't afford to, Evan replied with a shrug. HFY in its quietest form. Confidence where fear was expected. The guard waved him through. Evan's heart nearly burst out of his chest. Princess Aurelian's chambers were vast and empty. Evan moved carefully, setting the small wrapped bundle on a low table near the window. He hesitated, then straightened the cloth, making sure it looked respectful. No names, he whispered. That's the point. As he turned to leave, a voice froze him in place. What are you doing? Evan spun. Aurelian stood in the doorway, eyes glowing softly in the dim light. He swallowed. Hard. I'm sorry, Your Highness. I shouldn't be here. I'll go. Please don't. Her gaze dropped to the table. To the gift. What is that? She asked. Evan hesitated, then took a breath. A present, he said quietly. For the festival. Silence. Then softly, for me. Yes, he admitted. But not from anyone important. She looked back at him sharply. Explain. With shaking hands, Aurelian approached the table. She didn't tear the wrapping. She unfolded it carefully. The wooden dragon rested in her palms. Small, imperfect, warm from human hands. Her breath caught. It wasn't powerful. It wasn't valuable. It was gentle. I don't understand, she said, voice unsteady. Why would you give this to me? Evan met her eyes. Because everyone keeps giving things to your crown, he said. I figured someone should give something to you. The words landed like thunder. For a long moment, The dragon princess said nothing. Then her claws curled protectively around the carving. "No one has ever done this," she whispered. Alarms suddenly echoed faintly down the hall, guards shifting patrols. Evan stiffened. "I should go." "Yes," Aurelian said automatically. But then she added, quieter, "Thank you." Evan blinked. She had never thanked anyone before. He bowed, not because he had to, but because he wanted to, and slipped out. Aurelian stood alone, holding the small wooden dragon to her chest. For the first time in her life, the Festival of Scales felt real. Princess Aurelian Vera did not sleep that night. She sat on the edge of her obsidian bed, the small wooden dragon resting in her hands. Moonlight spilled through the tall windows, tracing silver lines across its smooth curves. It was imperfect. The wings were uneven, one claw slightly shorter than the other, and yet it felt more real than any treasure she owned. She pressed her thumb against the carved chest. "He made this," she whispered. "A human janitor. No title, no ambition, no fear." For the first time in her long life, something she owned carried intent rather than obligation. She did not realize how dangerous that was. Princess Aurelian Vera did not sleep that night. She sat on the edge of her obsidian bed, the small wooden dragon resting in her hands. Moonlight spilled through the tall windows, tracing silver lines across its smooth curves. It was imperfect. The wings were uneven, one claw slightly shorter than the other, and yet it felt more real than any treasure she owned. She pressed her thumb against the carved chest. "He made this," she whispered. "A human janitor. No title, no ambition, no fear." For the first time in her long life, something she owned carried intent rather than obligation. She did not realize how dangerous that was. By morning, rumors had begun to spread. Dragon servants noticed the change first. The princess was softer. She dismissed attendants early. She smiled when addressed. She skipped the ceremonial breakfast and instead stood near the windows, watching the lower city. And most shocking of all, she carried something with her. A small object wrapped in blue cloth. Dragons noticed everything. By midday, Captain Razek, commander of the Royal Guard, stood before the Queen's council chamber, scales bristling. "Your Majesty," he rumbled. "The princess has accepted an unsanctioned gift." The chamber went silent. Queen Maelthra, ancient and vast, lifted her burning gaze. "From whom?" Razek hesitated. "A human." The temperature in the chamber dropped. Evan Holt felt it before he saw it. Eyes, too many of them. As he pushed his cleaning cart through the western corridor, dragon guards watched him with open suspicion. Conversations stopped when he passed. Servants leaned away. Well, he thought grimly, that didn't take long. When a clawed hand clamped onto his shoulder, he didn't resist. "Human," growled a guard. "You will come with us." Evan nodded once. Figured. They marched him through halls he was never meant to see, past crystal columns and burning braziers, until massive doors opened into a stone chamber carved with ancient runes. A trial room. He swallowed. Evan stood alone in the center of the chamber as the royal guard formed a circle around him. Captain Razek stepped forward. "You violated royal protocol," the dragon snarled. "You entered the princess's chambers without authorization. You presented a personal item. Do you deny this?" Evan lifted his chin. "No." A murmur rippled through the chamber. "You admit guilt so easily?" Razek asked, surprised. Evan shrugged. "I did what I did." "For what purpose?" another voice demanded. "To gain favor? Power? Protection?" Evan shook his head. "She looked lonely," he said simply. "That's all." Silence slammed into the room. Dragons were not accustomed to such answers. The princess breaks protocol. The chamber doors boomed open. Gasps echoed. Princess Aurelian strode in, wings partially unfurled, eyes blazing with fury. "Stop this," she commanded. Razek spun. "Your Highness, this is not." "He is under my protection," she said coldly. The room erupted. "Impossible. Protocol forbids." A human? Aurelian stepped between Evan and the guards. You accuse him of wrongdoing? She demanded. Then accuse me as well. I accepted the gift. Razek stiffened. Princess, the queen. I do not care, Aurelian snapped. She turned to Evan, her voice lowering. Did they harm you? Evan blinked. No. Her claws curled anyway. Good. Queen Maelthra entered last. The air itself seemed to bow. Her massive form coiled behind the guards, eyes like molten suns fixed on Evan. So, the queen rumbled. You are the human. Evan swallowed but did not kneel. Yes, your majesty. A dangerous choice. The queen studied him for a long time. You gave my daughter a gift, she said. One with no value, no alliance, no advantage. Yes. Why? Evan took a breath. Because, he said, voice steady. No one ever gave her something just to make her happy. The queen's eyes narrowed. Then, something unexpected happened. She laughed. A deep, rumbling sound that shook the chamber. Humans, Maelthra said. Still reckless. Still strange. She turned to her daughter. Do you wish this human punished? Aurelian answered instantly. No. Do you wish him rewarded? She hesitated, then shook her head. I wish him unharmed, she said. And free. The queen considered this. Granted. The Festival of Embers had not been celebrated like this in centuries. Crimson banners draped the towers of the dragon citadel. Rivers of firelight flowed through crystal channels, illuminating the city below. Dragons of every caste gathered. Warriors, scholars, nobles, servants. Drawn by a sense that something was about to change. Princess Aurelian Vera stood on the highest balcony, wings folded neatly behind her. She wore ceremonial armor of gold and obsidian, flawless and ancient. Yet beneath the armor, tucked close to her heart, was something no tradition had ever required. A small wooden dragon. Evan Holt stood near the edge of the plaza, holding a broom he didn't need. He hadn't been ordered to work today. In fact, he'd been told to stay away. But he came anyway, because the princess had invited him. Dragons passed him with glances of curiosity and disbelief. Some sneered. Others studied him with new respect. A few inclined their heads, subtle but unmistakable. Guess I'm not invisible anymore, Evan thought. He looked up just as a horn sounded. The queen had arrived. Queen Maelthra Vera emerged in a blaze of heat and light, her wings spanning half the plaza. The crowd bowed as one. My people, she thundered. Today we celebrate endurance, fire, strength. Her gaze shifted directly to Evan. But strength alone does not sustain an empire. A ripple of unease spread through the dragons. Maelthra raised a claw. Today, my daughter will present a gift. Gasps erupted. Princess Aurelian stepped forward. Her voice carried, clear, steady, unafraid. All my life, she said, I received gifts of power, weapons, jewels, symbols of expectation. She paused. None of them were given to me. She reached into her armor and withdrew the small wooden dragon. Murmurs turned to stunned silence. This, Aurelian continued, was made by a human with no rank, no wealth, and no reason to care. Her eyes found Evan. He gave it to me because he saw me as a person. The plaza froze. Aurelian inhaled. Therefore, I give a gift in return. She turned and descended the stairs. Step by step, the dragon princess walked toward the human janitor. Her voice carried, clear, steady, unafraid. All my life, she said, I received gifts of power, weapons, jewels, symbols of expectation. She paused. None of them were given to me. She reached into her armor and withdrew the small wooden dragon. Murmurs turned to stunned silence. This, Aurelian continued, was made by a human with no rank, no wealth, and no reason to care. Her eyes found Evan. He gave it to me because he saw me as a person. The plaza froze. Aurelian inhaled. Therefore, I give a gift in return. She turned and descended the stairs. Step by step, The dragon princess walked toward the human janitor. Evan's heart pounded as she stopped in front of him. Up close, she was radiant, terrifying, gentle. She removed a small chain from around her neck. At its end hung a crystal shard glowing with warm firelight. "This is a bond sigil," she said softly. "A mark of protection and trust." The crowd erupted in shock. "To give this," she continued, "is to declare someone under my personal oath." She held it out to him. Evan stared. "Princess, are you sure?" Aurelian smiled, really smiled. "I have never been more certain of anything." He accepted it. The crystal warmed instantly. The sigil flared. The bond formed. Later that night, Aurelian stood beside Evan on the balcony overlooking the city. "You changed everything today," she said. He shook his head. "No, you did." She looked at him, eyes glowing softly. "You never asked for anything," she said. "Why?" Evan leaned on the railing. "Because being seen was enough." Her wings shifted, brushing his shoulder carefully. "Then stay," she said quietly. "Not as a servant, as a friend." He smiled. "I'd like that." Above them, dragons flew in peaceful arcs across the firelit sky. For the first time in history, a human stood among them. Not as prey, not as property, but as family.